For your materials, you're going to need a clipboard or a hard-covered book, some paper, sharpened pencils, an eraser, and maybe a pencil sharpener. I'm also going to bring some colored pencils with me because I might want to add some color to my drawing. And don't forget a blanket or a beach towel to sit on. Today I went to Old Burial Hill. I chose to come to Old Burial Hill today in Marblehead to start my plein air drawing. Now, plein air drawing is drawing from outside, out in the elements. A live drawing where we're not in the studio or working from a photograph. So I'm going to start to look around the area and find a good spot for a nice composition. We want to address foreground, middle ground, and background in our composition, so it's interesting for others to look at. So I'm going to start to kind of scope out the area and find a good spot to draw. Hi, good morning. So we've been scouting out the area at Old Burial Hill, and I think I found a good location that shows a foreground, middle ground, and background, and that the composition is pretty strong. It has a good focus of somewhere in the middle here I have an area of interest that we want to look at, or a subject, which would be this grouping of tombstones. So, foreground. This tree is in the foreground because it is bigger and it's up close. Anything that's in the foreground is going to be larger. Next, I'm going to go down and show you where the middle ground would be. Hi, here I am in the middle ground. I am next to where my subject area is. Now I'm going to go to the background. And here I am way in the background. I'm the furthest part of our picture. Okay, there I am. Tiny, tiny. So I've picked a spot that shows a strong foreground element, which would be the tree, because it's closest to me. It's the largest element on here, and maybe some of this rock. That's in the foreground. The middle ground are the couple of rows of tombstones. And then the background is going to be the monument at the far end of the area here. We have a horizon line, which is where the sky and the ground meet, where there's some trees and some houses. When I sketch, I like to maybe leave a little bit of the information out. It doesn't have to be completely there. I'm looking at doing a plein air sketch, which can be a little bit looser. So to start with, we're going to take our pencil and use a very light touch with our pencil. We're not going to use a hard line. We're going to go very quickly and very sketchy, very light touch on our paper. I have my clipboard. I have a bunch of paper. I have a sketch that I did earlier that we didn't tape. And I'm going to start to show where my foreground, middle ground, and background is going to be on the paper. So as I'm looking here, I have in the foreground, I have some rocks and the tree. So here's going to be where the rocks are near my feet. Then in my middle ground, I'm just going to draw a very light line to show where this is going to go. And then my background is going to be the hill where the little monument is, which is going to go right about here. So I've added my foreground, middle ground, and background. My horizon line is right in this area here. Let's look for some shapes that you can identify, and let's start at the background. I'm looking at the monument out there, and what shapes can you see when you look at that monument? Because I see some rectangles. I see a bunch of rectangles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I see about 7 rectangles, and an oval shape at the top that's supposed to be the urn. So I'm going to start at the base, and I'm going to sketch. Now this is far away from me, so it's going to be kind of small. I'm going to sketch the base, then the next rectangle, and look at how lightly I'm sketching. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on my pencil, and there's the taller part, and there's a top, and then we're going to put the little urn here. I think I made this a little bit bigger than I should have, but I think it'll be all right. Okay, so that's going to be my scale. That's the one that's far away. Now I'm going to go to my middle ground. My subject here is going to be this grouping of tombstones, and I'm going to start with the 3 that are in the middle that seem to be more prominent. One is directly below that, and it's going to be about 3 times the size. So let's really make this bigger. So there's one. There's a round top. And again, I'm going to clean this up later so it won't be. Here's my next one. And here's my next one. Okay, so there's the 3. There's a white one that's a little bit smaller in front of it. It's a little bit thicker. Put that one here. Round top. There's a gray one next to that. That's here. This is going to be smaller, sorry. Fix that later. Taller. And then we have another one here. And then in my foreground, I have a lot of stone. So here are some ducks at Red's Pond. Just kind of fun. There's another little area here that has a okay. So my shapes, again, they have curved tops and they're rectangles, basic shapes. The last thing that's in the foreground, besides these rocks that are here, are also, sorry, a little one here I just noticed, is a tree that's coming up that's kind of framing the top of this. So my tree is coming up from here. It's always nice to have something kind of frame your picture. And remember, when we do our branches, they are little Ys coming off. And I'm just going to add a few just to frame it. Now there are some other rock formations. There's one behind this grouping that I think I'll add here. Okay. And I'm going to add one more little stone that's here. And my hill. It's coming down. And then there's one more little tree in the background. So this is a very basic sketch of breaking down my shapes, taking the time to sit, take a look. Now what I want to do is start to bring some of the details in. I'm looking for my light source, which will help to define where the lines are. Where's your sun? So the sun, I'm going to look at the tombstones, see where the light's hitting them. The sun is coming from the top left today. It's a little overcast, so it's not super bright. We don't have a lot of shadows. So my sun's coming from the top left, which means my structures, my elements are going to be darker on one side. So I'm going to start to bring in some of the detail by sketching over some of the details and make these lines a little stronger. Okay. And this is where my shadow is on the side. So if we look at the tombstone down there, we'll see that there's shadow on the left, and this side's going to be lighter. There's also a little... And I missed some stairs. There's a stair here. We'll add our grass and some things later. And then with our tombstones, same thing, we're gonna really bring the details in. So these have a little lip on the edge, which I missed. The tops of these look like a curve, almost like a rainbow shape. another one right here. So I have my tombstones, my little monument in the background, and I have some stone here. I'm going to use the side of my pencil. And I don't have a tree here, so I added something that I did not observe because the tree's actually coming out from the side. So I'm going to bring this branch this way and get rid of that. And then this is all hill. All right. I'm going to leave this kind of like that. So I have a foreground with my tree, my middle ground, and my background. And at this point, I think I've got the shapes that I really wanted to bring detail into. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my colored pencils and I'm going to add a little color, bringing in some of the details and some of the texture on these two stones. So I'm looking at what the colors are, and they are dark grays. They have some moss on it, a little bit of light green, light gray, dark gray, and a little bit of green on it. So I'm going to go through my collection here and see what I have that I can do. I have a bunch of white, but I'll pull it out. I have to thank my daughter Caitlin for helping me today. Oh, she's showing me where the gray is. It's nice to have someone. Fronts and the side to the edge, and again I'm going to use a very light touch and a very small, very small stroke because I'm just filling in the edge. So I've started to add a little bit of darkness. I could probably go even darker than this. The one in the back needs a little color too, just a little gray. I picked a very limited palette here of grays. If you want to make the shadows on this look a little darker, if you push down on your pencil or your colored pencil, it'll give you a darker color. If you go lighter, it's easier to blend. Okay. So I have my tombstones. I have one here that's the same value. The darker one, get it up against the, does that look like that? Does that look like the palette? Yeah. For the grass? So I'm going to do my little Ys. And what I'm looking at is the really dark spots to bring in my shadow for my rocks. Anything that you see is really dark. It's a little dark down here too. And then again, a lot of it's with our stroke. The grass is really tall. It has not been trimmed, and we're just going to kind of go in and bring some very light. And the wind is blowing it to the right, so the grass is bending just a little bit. You can color in, if you use the side of your pencil, you can block in some of the color first. Gotta stay away from light. Colors that are closest to us are more vibrant. As they move away, the atmosphere starts to dull the color. So as they go into they start to recede to the background, the color might be a little bit lighter than the color in front, which is going to be more vibrant. So my back hill is actually going to have a little bit lighter or almost brownish hue to the hill. I edited out some parts that I didn't feel like I needed right now. The things that are in the background are very soft and not super detailed. Things that are closer get more details. The little grass and the stone brings you forward. This I could probably lighten up a little bit so it sits back a little bit more, but I have my foreground, my middle ground, and my background. I hope you enjoyed this. It's going to be beautiful out this week, no rain, so get out and go find a good spot in Marblehead. You could do your house, you could do one of the landmarks, any place that you're drawn to. No pun intended. So have a great time, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Bye.